The moment I saw her lying down there, I thought she was dead. The cliff wasn't just steep, it was brutal, jagged, sharp like broken glass. The kind of fall no creature walks away from. Her body was crumpled between two boulders, twisted in a way that made me look away for a second. I don't know what made me climb down. Maybe guilt, maybe instinct. But I had to see. I had to be sure. I slid, stumbled, clawed my way through the brush, grabbing onto roots, scraping my hands raw on stone. The whole way down, I kept thinking, what the hell am I doing? But when I reached her, something shifted in me. Blood soaked the dirt beneath her side. Her front leg was clearly broken, bone piercing through skin. Her eyes were glassy, unfocused, but then they blinked. Slowly, barely. She was alive, still breathing. I froze. My heart slammed against my ribs. I didn't know what to do. This was a lynx, a wild animal. Not a dog, not a calf. But then she let out this sound, a broken, soft exhale. Not a growl, not a warning, more like surrender. "It's okay," I whispered, though my voice shook. I had no idea who I was talking to, her or myself. I pulled off my jacket and covered her body gently, tucking the corners under her like a blanket. Her ears didn't twitch. Her chest barely moved. She was slipping. I looked up at the cliff and cursed. Carrying her back up was madness. But there was no other choice. If I left her here, she'd die. If I tried and failed, she'd die too. But if I did nothing, I couldn't live with that. Somehow, I got her across my shoulders. Her weight was more than I expected. Maybe adrenaline carried me. Maybe it was something else. Her blood soaked through my shirt. Warm, sticky, real. Her head rested against my back, and I kept repeating to myself, "Don't trip. Don't fall. Don't drop her." By the time I reached the top, I was gasping. My knees shook. I laid her gently into the bed of my old ATV trailer, wrapped tighter in my jacket. Her breathing was shallow, a rasp. I slapped the tarp down and raced toward home. The farm isn't much. Just a few chickens now. A broken barn roof. And silence. Always silence. Since Emily died, the place hasn't felt like a home. Just a waiting room. I carried her into the shed behind the house. That used to be the storage for tools and hay bales. Now it was dry, shaded, quiet. I spread out an old sleeping bag and laid her down gently. Her body trembled, twitching in pain. I couldn't tell how much time she had left. I ran back to the house, grabbed the first aid kit, some old towels, a pair of scissors, and a flask of cheap whiskey. Not for her. For me. My hands shook as I cleaned her wounds. I had no clue what I was doing. I wasn't a vet. I wasn't even sure if this was legal. But I kept working. I cut the fur around the gash, flushed the dirt and blood with saline. Every time she flinched, I paused. At one point, her paw twitched and pressed weakly against my arm. I don't know if it was instinct or trust or pain, but I didn't stop. Night came quickly. I turned on the old heat lamp I used for chicks back in the day and angled it toward her. The shed smelled of blood and sweat and dust. I sat beside her and drank. Not much, just enough to stop my hands from trembling. I stared at her for what felt like hours. Her breathing slowed. Steadier now. Her ears flicked once. Her tail twitched. I whispered again, "You're a damn fool for surviving that fall. And I'm a bigger fool for bringing you here." But deep down, I knew why. I hadn't saved anything in a long time. Not my wife. Not the farm. Not myself. And this lynx, she was the first living thing in months that needed me. Somewhere in that, I felt something flicker. Not hope exactly, but close. And I knew, come morning, this wouldn't be over. It would only just begin. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her body slipping off that cliff again. Heard the sound of bones cracking. I'd jerk awake and check the shed, half expecting to find her gone. But every time I crept in, she was still there. Alive. Barely. In the gray light of morning, I stood over her with a coffee mug in one hand and the local vet's number in the other. But I didn't call. I couldn't. Last time I trusted them, they put Max down. Said there was no hope. I begged them to try harder. But they saw an old dog, not a part of my family. I buried Max behind the barn that same day. Since then, I fix things myself, or I don't fix them at all. I tossed the paper in the trash and pulled together everything I could find. Gauze, antiseptic, painkillers I had from when I threw out my back, scissors, an old syringe. My hands shook again, but I kept moving. I watched a few shaky YouTube videos on my phone, buffering every few seconds thanks to the crappy signal. I took notes like a student before an exam. The lynx was breathing slower now. Her ears twitched when I entered, but she didn't lift her head. "All right," I muttered. "Let's see what we can do." I cleaned her wounds again, changed the dressing. This time I noticed the swelling on her back leg. Could be a fracture. I rigged a splint with 2 wooden spoons and medical tape. It wasn't pretty, but it held. By noon, I was running on fumes. My hands were covered in dried blood and iodine. My shirt stuck to me with sweat, but she was still here. Then came the knock. I wiped my hands on a rag and stepped out. It was Tom Bennett, my neighbor, if you could call him that. He lived half a mile up the road and thought of himself as the unofficial sheriff of the whole damn valley. "You all right, Jack?" he asked, eyes squinting past me toward the shed. I nodded. "Just cleaning out the old tool shed." He sniffed, rubbed the back of his neck. "Heard some folks talking. Said they saw you dragging something through the woods last night. Something big." I felt my stomach knot. "Just some old tarp I left near the ridge. Wind carried it halfway to town. Tom didn't buy it. He never did. You know there've been reports," he said. "Predator sightings. One of my goats disappeared last week. Probably a lynx or a cougar. If you see anything, you better let someone know." I nodded again, jaw tight. "Of course." He gave me a long look, then finally walked off. I waited until his truck disappeared down the road before I let myself breathe. By late afternoon, word was spreading. I passed 2 kids biking near the farm who stared a little too long. I caught Marlene at the general store whispering when I walked in. No one said anything directly, but I could feel it. They all thought I'd cracked. Again, back home, I checked on her. The swelling hadn't gone down, but she was more alert. Her eyes followed me now. She still didn't trust me, kept her muscles tight, her claws ready, but she didn't growl either. That evening, I sat outside the shed with my beer and tried to think. I was breaking the law. I knew that. Harboring a wild animal, especially an injured predator, was a big no-no. I could get fined, arrested. Hell, they could put her down if they found her. And maybe Tom had already called someone. But I couldn't hand her over. I thought about calling my sister. But we hadn't talked since the funeral. And she never understood why I kept letting animals into my life like they were people. "She's gonna hurt you one day," she once told me. "They're wild. They don't love you back." Maybe she was right. I got up and walked back inside. The lynx's ears twitched when I approached. I crouched next to her, careful not to move too fast. "You don't owe me anything," I whispered. "I just couldn't leave you there." She blinked slowly. Her chest rose and fell, steady. Then, without a sound, she closed her eyes and drifted back into sleep. The moral thing to do was to report her. Let the professionals handle it. But I couldn't shake the feeling that if I did, she wouldn't make it. That she needed more than medicine. She needed a chance. That night, I didn't drink. I sat beside her under the red glow of the heat lamp, scribbling notes about her breathing, her movement, the color of her wounds. And for the first time in a long while, I felt like I had a purpose. Not a cure, not a miracle, just a reason to try. By the 3rd day, she wasn't just surviving, she was fighting. I opened the shed door with the usual quiet step, cup of warm broth in hand, and there she was, sitting up, chest rising and falling fast, ears flat against her skull. The blanket was shredded. The makeshift splint I'd so carefully rigged was halfway across the floor, and her yellow eyes locked onto me like I was the next thing she was going to tear apart. I stopped in my tracks. "Well, good morning to you too," she growled. Low, deep, but not loud. Her body trembled from the effort. I crouched, set the bowl down slowly, and backed off. "All right," I said. "You don't have to like me. Just don't die." She didn't eat until I left the shed. I watched from the house, through the gap in the planks. She leaned forward slowly, sniffed the broth, and then, despite herself, drank. I smiled like an idiot. Later that afternoon, I tried to re-wrap her leg. Big mistake. The moment I touched her paw, she snapped. Not to bite, just a warning, but fast enough to slice the air beside my wrist. I flinched back and dropped everything. My heart raced. I sat on the floor, hands raised. "You don't trust me," I said softly. "I get it." She lay back down, breathing heavy, watching me. There was pain in those eyes. Not just physical. It was the same look I saw in the mirror some mornings. That night, I called someone I hadn't spoken to in over a year. "Sarah." She answered on the 3rd ring. Her voice was tired, guarded. "Jack." "Yeah." I paused. "I need help." She didn't ask questions. Didn't yell. Just said, "Where are you?" Half an hour later, headlights lit up the driveway. I stood on the porch, arms crossed, unsure how she'd look at me. She stepped out of the car wearing scrubs and an old hoodie. Her hair was shorter, her eyes the same, sharp and sad. "I thought you were done with strays," she said. "This one didn't give me a choice." She followed me to the shed. The moment she stepped in, the lynx tensed. Sarah knelt low, careful, observant. "Broken leg. Inflammation. She's lucky she's alive." "I know. You've been giving her antibiotics?" "Just what I had on hand. Amoxicillin. From the dog." She shook her head, but didn't scold. "You did all right. But she needs proper care." I watched as Sarah slowly approached. She didn't touch the lynx, just knelt a few feet away, speaking softly. "You're not going to hurt him," she whispered. "Not unless you want me to hurt you back." The lynx blinked, ears still pinned, but no growl. Sarah looked at me. "Hold her shoulders. Gently. She'll fight." I obeyed. Her muscles tightened beneath my hands. She didn't yell, just struggled a bit, claws twitching. But she let it happen. Together, we reset the splint, cleaned the wound, applied fresh bandages. Sarah worked quickly, efficiently. She didn't cry, didn't flinch, just breathed through it. When we were done, she sat on the floor and exhaled. I said, "Thanks." She shrugged. "She reminds me of someone." I didn't ask. I already knew. Her daughter had passed the year before. An accident. No one ever talked about it. And Sarah had stopped coming by after the funeral. Stopped answering texts. We sat in silence for a while. Then she looked at me. "You still think you can fix everything?" I shook my head. "No, but maybe I can fix one thing." She nodded. "Start with her." Sarah stayed the night. Slept on the couch. In the morning, she helped with feeding again. The lynx didn't growl this time. Before she left, Sarah pressed a bottle into my hand. "Proper meds. Twice a day. Call me if she worsens." I nodded. "You going back to the clinic?" "No. I'm off this week. Might stop by." The next 2 days passed slow. The lynx still kept her distance, but she watched me. Ate more. Moved her head when I came near. It wasn't trust, but it wasn't fear either. Then came the morning of the missing chicken. I walked out to the coop and found feathers. A trail leading toward the woods. The door latch was twisted, like something had clawed at it. One bird gone. No blood. My stomach sank. Within the hour, I got a call from Tom. "Jack, heard you got a visitor last night. Something big. Might want to check your fences." I lied through my teeth. Said it was probably a coyote. Said I'd beef up the locks. He didn't believe me. "You see anything weird around that shed of yours, you let me know. We've had problems before. Don't need another." I hung up. Walked back inside. Sat on the steps, staring at the tree lean. The lynx was lying near the heat lamp, eyes closed, breathing steady. Had she done it? Left in the night. She could barely stand 2 days ago. But hunger makes things happen. I didn't know. And that uncertainty, it clawed at me harder than anything else. Trust goes both ways. And right now, I wasn't sure either of us had earned it. It was just after dawn when I saw the blood. A sharp line of red streaked across the edge of my gravel path, cutting through the frost that had settled overnight. Not just a drip, a trail. I followed it, stomach tight, heart already racing. It curved around the back of my shed, across the property line, and down toward Tom Bennett's pasture. The smell hit me before I saw it, coppery and thick. There, lying in the grass just beyond the split-rail fence, was one of Tom's goats. Throat torn open, belly ripped. Fresh, still warm. Flies hadn't even found it yet. I crouched low. There were paw prints. Big ones, but not fresh enough to tell clearly. Could have been anything. A dog, a coyote, maybe even her. My lynx. I stood there frozen, every part of me screaming that this was bad. Really bad. And right on cue, I heard the crunch of tires on gravel. I turned to see Tom's truck barrel down the hill, dust kicking up behind it. He didn't even park, just jumped out while the engine was still running. "You saw this?" he shouted, pointing. I nodded slowly. "Just now." He stared at me, face red, eyes wild. "She did this, didn't she?" "I don't know that." "Don't play dumb, Jack. You've got a damn predator living in your shed. You think we didn't notice?" I tried to stay calm. "She's injured. She can barely stand." He scoffed. "That goat didn't rip its own guts out. You need to turn her in. Today." I didn't answer. I just looked back toward the woods. By mid-morning, 2 sheriff's deputies were at my door. They came in polite, but it was clear they already had their minds made up. One of them, younger guy, tried to keep his voice level. "Mr. Harmon, We've received a complaint about a potentially dangerous animal being harbored on your property. She's not dangerous, I said. She's recovering. He sighed. We understand you've been through a lot, but you can't keep a wild lynx. It's a public safety issue. She didn't kill that goat. You can't know that for sure. They wanted to see her. I didn't let them in. Told them she wasn't up for visitors. Told them to come back with a warrant. They didn't like that. One of them, the older one, leaned in. You're interfering with an investigation. You could be charged. I looked him square in the eye. Then charge me. They left, but not before letting me know animal control would be coming by that evening. As soon as they pulled away, I ran to the shed. She was curled tight against the wall, pupils wide, tail flicking. She knew something was wrong. Animals always know. I sat beside her, pressed my back to the wall. If they take you, I whispered, you won't make it. Not in some cage. Not after all this. I didn't realize I was crying until she shifted her head slightly and nudged my arm with her nose. Just once. It was barely a gesture, but it shattered me. I needed help. I called Sarah. She showed up faster than I expected, still in her work scrubs, hair tied back. What happened? She asked. I told her everything, about the goat, the cops, the threats. She didn't say much, just checked the lynx, made sure her vitals were stable. Then she stood, brushed off her knees, and said, we're not giving her up. I blinked. You're sure? She nodded. I know someone who might help. While she stepped outside to make the call, I stayed with the lynx. Her breathing was shallow now, not like before. Worse. I leaned in, touched her side gently. Her skin was cold. Hey, I said, don't do this. Not now. When Sarah returned, her face was pale. He's coming, she said. But it might take time. I didn't ask who. A few hours later, just as the sun dipped low, another car pulled up. Not police. A beat-up Subaru. Out stepped a man in worn jeans and a forestry badge clipped to his collar. Name's Wade, he said. Wildlife rehab. Sarah called. He walked into the shed, took one look at the lynx, and said, you did better than most. Can you take her? I asked. He hesitated. Not yet. She's too fragile. Move her now. She'll crash. We stabilize her here, then transfer. So we worked together. Set up a fluid line. Oxygen. Monitored her heart. But somewhere between the second saline bag and the dusk rolling in, she stopped breathing. I panicked. She's not. Give me space, Wade barked. Then he started compressions. Gentle. Focused. After what felt like a lifetime, she gasped. We all exhaled at once. Wade didn't look up. She wants to live, but she's not safe here. I nodded. I'll do whatever it takes. He gave me a long look. Even if it means letting her go? I didn't answer, because I didn't know. That night, I sat beside her again. Her breath was ragged, but steady. I whispered, hang on, girl. Just one more night. A month passed. She walked now, limping at first, then steadier with each day. Her coat grew thick again, the bald patches where we shaved her for injections slowly disappearing. She never purred, never played, but she watched me. Closely. Every step I made, she tracked. She didn't trust, not fully, but she didn't fear, either. I left the shed door open most mornings. She could have gone any time. Into the woods. Into the wild. But she stayed. Every day I expected her to be gone. And every evening, I'd glance outside and see her on the porch or curled under the cedar near the fence line, eyes half closed, ears alert. Like she belonged. Like she chose to be here. And it scared me. I started wondering if I was doing the right thing. She was meant to be free. Meant to disappear into trees and snowdrifts, not sleep under my roof. Maybe I'd broken something in her by keeping her here too long. Or maybe she'd filled the broken part of me. Sarah still came by once a week. She brought meds and fresh bandages even after the wounds healed. Brought coffee too. We talked more now. Sat on the porch like old friends who didn't need to say everything out loud. But this time, she brought news. I'm moving, she said, sipping from the chipped mug I never replaced. I looked at her. Where? Boise. Got a job at the clinic downtown. I nodded. Tried not to show it hurt. Good for you. She looked out at the trees. I need a reset. New place. New start. Maybe find something to look forward to again. You'll find it, I said. You always do. We didn't talk much after that. She stayed another hour, then packed her bag and stood at the bottom of the porch steps. The lynx was lying nearby, watching her calm. Sarah knelt and whispered, you take care of him, all right? The lynx didn't move. Sarah stood. looked at me. You gonna be okay? I forced a smile. Always. She didn't believe me, but she let it be. That night was quiet, colder than it had been in weeks. I sat outside long after the fire burned down, the lynx at my feet. She'd started sleeping near me, close enough to hear her breathing. I told her, maybe you stayed too long. Maybe I did. She didn't respond, obviously, but her head lifted slightly, eyes blinking slow, like she heard every word. The next morning, she was gone. Just like that. Shed door wide open. Tracks in the dirt leading out toward the tree line. I didn't panic. Not really. I told myself it was time. That this was the right ending. I even smiled a little. But when the sun dropped and she hadn't returned, a knot formed in my chest I couldn't ignore. Another night passed. I kept the porch light on. Stupid, maybe, but it felt like something I had to do. Then, just before dawn, I heard the scratching. I opened the front door and froze. She stood there, breathing hard, eyes wild. And beside her, half hidden in the brush, was something small, shivering. A bundle of fur with 2 big ears and trembling legs. A cub. It staggered forward, then collapsed at my feet. She didn't flinch, didn't growl, just watched me. I knelt slowly, heart pounding. The cub was limp, thin, burning with fever. I looked up at her. Yours? She didn't answer, of course. But something in her eyes, steady, deep, knowing, told me enough. I scooped the cub up gently, turned to the door. She followed without a sound. Inside, I placed the little one on the same blanket she had used weeks before. Grabbed a towel, some water, whatever I could find. She sat beside him, eyes never leaving my hands. Sarah would have known what to do. I almost called, but then I stopped. This was mine now. Hours passed. The cub whimpered once, then slept. I stayed by his side, and she stayed by mine. By nightfall, he was breathing easier. I sat back, exhausted, and looked at her. You found him. Or maybe he found you. Either way, I guess we're not done, huh? She stepped closer, just enough for her nose to touch my hand. And in that moment, something broke open in me. Something I'd locked away long before Max, long before Emily. Something I didn't even realize I was still holding. Tears came. Not from pain, not even from joy, but from that rarest thing of all, completion. She met my gaze. Not wild, not tamed, just real. And in those eyes, I didn't find answers. Only truth.